Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Improve and Have Fun podcast. My name is Paul PVP Perez, and on this podcast, I work on improving myself while having fun along the way. I improve myself by taking repeated action on something that I want to get better at. And we should all be doing more things that we enjoy, because life is too short to do things that suck. Even though we all have to still do those things. On this podcast, I'm going to be talking about going MGTOW and asking myself, am I MGTOW? And maybe you, the listener, will ask yourself the same. This more pertains to my male listeners, but females, of course, would love to, as always, get your input, get your feedback, and love you as listeners as well. I love all the listeners. On the last episode, I was talking about going 48 hours without my cell phone and what I learned. And on this episode, I'm going to be talking about going MGTOW. What is MGTOW? Am I MGTOW? And this is an acronym which we're going to break down in this podcast. I've been putting a lot more work in terms of production value into this podcast for this particular year. If you see especially on iTunes, I know, you can go ahead and see the video versions I've been putting out, almost like a vlog style of these particular episodes. And if you can't see that, you can always go on to improveandhavefun.com and see those little vlogs that I make for these episodes. Please do check it out. On this episode is another example of how I'm trying to retool and just try different things and up the production on this podcast. So there's going to be a section of this podcast that's going to be read by a voice narrator. I actually had this one particular section written. I didn't write it myself. I normally write all the scripts for this podcast. I put it together and I go over it and everything. This one, I actually used iWriter. This is a skill I actually learned from doing Kindle publishing. I give the writer a topic, I give them some bullet points, and they go ahead and write up an article. And if it's to my liking, I approve it and I pay for it, and then I bring it here to the podcast. Also, just to kind of add a different voice, I went ahead on Fiverr and hired a voice narrator. And I really love this guy's voice. It's you're going to see it, you're going to hear it in a moment. But let's go ahead and get into the episode. I enjoy Stefan Molyneux's material. He's a philosopher, podcaster, YouTuber, and author. In his recent review of The Last Jedi movie, he mentioned MGTOW. I became curious and started looking up information on this acronym. What is MGTOW?
Who runs the world depends on who you ask. James Brown sang that it's a man's world. But a lot of men living in modern Western societies would beg to differ. A few men against the double standards in gender roles and other conditions that favor women and disadvantage men have become part of a pseudonymous online community known as MGTOW. What is MGTOW? Pronounced MGTOW. MGTOW stands for Men Going Their Own Way. This movement originated on the web and added more fuel to the fire on the ongoing battle of the sexes. According to their website, MGTOW is for men who wish to preserve their sovereignty above all else. History of MGTOW. Though this movement seems to have originated online, its ideologies are not new, and some of its ideas go back as far as ancient Rome and Greece. In fact, most cultures have a historic and natural link to very MGTOW-like ideas. The book The Age of the Bachelor shows that monogamy is not a new concept and that there are records of men avoiding marriage and choosing the bachelor lifestyle. In 1896, Ernest Belfort Bax summarized why men should resist marriage in his essay, The Matrimonial Privileges of Women. This essay outlines 12 key points on why marriage puts men at an unjust disadvantage and leaves them vulnerable to deception and fraud at the hands of their wives. In 1998, a group of men formed the Anti-Bardell Bachelor Band. This club's motto was Solomon's Proverb, which stated that it is better for a man to live alone in the corner of a house than in a wide room of brawling women. This club's mandate was to oppose marriage and to fight for the liberty of men. All this information points to the fact that misogamy, which is a key tenet of MGTOW, is not a new concept. Why did it come about? As with all ideologies and movements, there is a lot of debate over who is a real MGTOW. However, there are always key principles that members of these movements adhere to. For example, regardless of the various sects and denominations, all Christians believe that Jesus is the Son of God. In the same vein, all MGTOW members believe in recognizing how modern societies really work when it comes to the role of the sexes and refusing to feed or buy into this system. The following are major MGTOW beliefs. 1. Women are hypergamous in nature. That means they will always look for the most powerful partner they can get through marriage. Today, wealth is equated with power, and a lot of women will look for a rich man to marry. However, in their younger years, a woman may temporarily hook up with a man who is physically powerful and attractive. 2. Females are intrinsically hedonistic. This means that they are materialistic and often pursue sexual pleasure, even though she may be ashamed to admit this. 3. Several social and political changes in Western societies are detrimental to men. Some of the issues raised by MGTOW include no-fault divorces, child custody battles that favor women, easy access to abortion, the contraceptive pill, and unjust alimony claims. All of these changes have made it a lot easier for women to trade up their partner for a more powerful male while allowing the state and her former husband to support her. The different social and cultural changes have made it possible for a woman to divorce her husband and then leave him without his children or his home. 4. The MGTOW movement argues against some of the claims made by feminists and social observers. They point out that suicide rates are very high in men compared to women, and that men are overrepresented in fatal and dirty jobs such as construction work and the military. MGTOW argues that most women have the chance to live long and healthy lives at the emotional and material expense of men. 5. Men are subject to a double standard that expects them to protect women while still accommodating demands for equality. MGTOW argues that women are allowed to have their cake and eat it too. Women want a lot of chivalric deference when it comes to certain aspects, but they want to be treated as equals in other aspects. Phrases such as man up are frowned upon by the MGTOW movement because they require a man to fit into a certain gender mold and provide for a woman while still enduring the risk of losing everything he has manned up and worked for in case of a divorce. 6. MGTOW are against a behavior known as white knighting. This involves conforming to chivalric traditions such as buying women gifts or defending her social views publicly. Members of the movement view this behavior as self-defeating, as they argue that the man will be emotionally and financially used up, after which the woman will discard him for a more powerful male. Men who have developed white knighting capabilities and are unable to determine the direction of their lives are referred to as mangina, which is a vulgar term for complete surrender to a woman. 7. Men who believe in MGTOW ideas say that they have taken the red pill. This is a reference to the Matrix film in which Neo swallows a red pill and becomes aware of the true nature of the world and his imprisonment in an artificial reality. Members will often refer to their life before they discovered the MGTOW movement as their blue pill life. Because of all the disadvantages men face, the movement feels there is no way men can ever win in any heterosexual relationship with women. As a result, the only way forward is for men to go their own way until society either reforms or collapses. They argue that this move helps protect men's financial, emotional, and social well-being. However, the intention of men going their own way is not selfish. A lot of men in this movement spend time discussing how to improve themselves financially and how to leave a legacy. What are the levels of MGTOW? 1. Situational awareness. Men in this group are aware that the odds are stacked against them when it comes to relationships, but they are still willing to take the risk. They know they are disadvantaged, but they do not necessarily reject this system. While they are different from people who are living a blue pill life and who still wallow in propaganda about patriarchy, they do not fully fit into the MGTOW movement or label. 2. Rejection of long-term relationships. Men at this level reject all long-term relationships, including marriage and cohabitation. The argument is there is really no reason for men to get married today. When the marriage goes south, the children could be ripped from the man at a moment's notice, and he may never be allowed to see them again. Furthermore, women do not have any social or legal obligation to men, yet men are required to carry all traditional obligations while still conforming to progressive obligations. 3. Rejection of short-term relationships. Members at this level reject any personal relationship with women, including friendships, one-night stands, and dating. Contact is kept to a minimum, and all conversations must be professional. The main reasons for this include broadening definitions of sexual assault and sexual harassment. For example, most members are against heaping culpability on men while removing culpability on women for their actions when defining rape, such as in situations where both parties were drunk when they engaged in sex. 4. Economic disengagement. At this level, a man strives to produce just enough for his own survival. He does as much work as possible off the books to reduce taxation and keeps himself in the lowest tax bracket possible without negatively affecting his standard of living or way of life. In reality, men do not require a lot of resources to be content. However, women drive most of the consumption in the modern world. Therefore, the best way to incentivize a man to work hard and create was to encourage him to get a family. Even after he loses his family, the law continues to encourage him to produce by requiring him to pay alimony and child support. Economic disengagement is a way for MGTOW members to shun this system. 5. Societal rejection. This involves completely understanding how society really works and rejecting the entire system. A MGTOW in this level will minimize all contact with the blue pill world out of disdain or a desire to protect himself. He may interact with others due to his job or public duty. However, this interaction is kept professional and at a minimum. In extreme situations, the MGTOW member may leave the current society altogether and look for a less misandric country to live in. Why is MGTOW more prevalent today? Most MGTOW views balk at current social and cultural conventions in the Western world, which is why a lot of the debate is limited to anonymous posts and forums. However, misogyny and the fight for liberty of the male is as old as antiquity. In the past, a lot of people who decided to live as bachelors were shamed, and some countries enacted a bachelor tax. However, the internet has made it easier for men who are against misandry to express themselves and to connect with others who have similar beliefs. Another factor that has contributed to the rise of MGTOW is extreme or toxic feminism. Misandric societies constantly enact laws that favor women to the detriment of men. In most cases, men cannot speak up out of fear of being called misogynistic or sexist. Most of these men have gone underground and chosen to become part of the MGTOW movement. Did MGTOW show up in the recent Star Wars: The Last Jedi movie? Some of the things that most people found appealing in the old Star Wars movies were the Jedis and Luke Skywalker. The latest movie provides an interesting look at the relationship between the sexes in most workplaces. A lot of MGTOW members feel that the latest movie was a misandric mess, though there are instances of male characters who chose to go their own way. For example, Poe Dameron defies direct orders from his boss. He leads his rebel air force to victory, although there are a lot of casualties. He is reprimanded and slapped by Leia for not understanding the chain of command, he is also demoted for his trouble. When Leia goes into a coma, she is replaced by Vice Admiral Holdo, who doesn't feel the need to tell Poe Dameron everything about their mission. She urges Poe to stick to his post and follow orders, but he ignores her. Several rebel fighters die as a result of this. When Leia and Holdo finally let Poe in on their plans, he blabs it out loud enough for a DJ to hear them and sell them out. This is a subtle message that women are usually right and men are mostly wrong. MGTOW feels that most male heroes in the movies have been replaced by female ones. Admiral Holdo is the heroine of this franchise, as she jumped into hyperspace and sacrificed herself for the Resistance. When Finn tries to do the same, Rose stops him and then proclaims she saved him. Conclusion: there are a lot of misconceptions about the MGTOW movement. There are people who simply think that it is a group of bitter men who have a list of jilted female lovers that they are angry about. There are others who believe that MGTOW members are conservatives who are afraid of losing their male privilege. However, both of these accusations could not be further from the truth. A lot of conservatives are actually pro-marriage, and they would be the first to request men to man up and fulfill their gender roles. Most MGTOW members have been in relationships. However, after a logical risk-benefit analysis and cost-benefit analysis, they have concluded that it is not worth it to pursue any romantic relationship with women. These members would like to pursue this path peacefully without being shamed by society for their decisions.
With all that being said, I ask myself, am I MGTOW? I'm a child of divorced parents. I believe this has affected my relationships with women for years, mostly in the commitment area. I would date someone for 2 to 3 months and end it. I think this was out of fear of potentially getting my heart broken. In 2017, I attempted to get back into the dating scene. I read books, listened to podcasts, spent money on subscriptions to Match.com and OkCupid. I also tried Coffee Meets Bagel, Tinder, Bumble. I sent numerous emails, met a person, and went on a couple of dates, but she wasn't what I was looking for. Many attempts, but little to no action. I tried this for about 6 months and just stopped. I went the route of hiring sex workers when feeling horny, and I haven't looked back. This was one of the things I was afraid to do. I still get nervous when I'm doing it. Each situation has been positive, but not perfect, and that's okay. This is where I think I'm going MGTOW. Choosing to not date, to not chase women. In the long term, there is less money spent moving in this direction. I will save my money for other endeavors such as travel or for my various projects. Or is this just an excuse to stop trying to date because it's hard? I know anything worthwhile is difficult. The key word being thing. Dealing with people can be unpredictable. Working with a thing typically has a desired outcome. This is another experiment in a life full of experiments. And that in itself is exciting. In part of doing my dating research, a podcast that I listen to and still listen to is the Dating Women podcast with Doc Love. And I heard this in a podcast after I wrote this, and he said that if you're going to go ahead and get into dating, you better love rejection. The same with sales. You have to love rejection because it's absolutely what to expect. Out of 99 women that you can try to go ahead and date, maybe 2 of the 99, he says, may be winners, and maybe 1 will be one that'll be worth sticking by. And in this particular episode, the guy he's talking to, he says to him that it's okay to feel down, to feel dejected, but you do have to just basically fall in love with getting rejected because it's going to happen. It's inevitable. Maybe my ego is a little, maybe not at the moment, because like I said, life happens in seasons, like Robin Sharma said. So for right now, maybe my ego, maybe I'm a little sensitive to just getting so rejected that I just don't want to go down that that route right now, but I am open to it in the future. I'm open to it later this year. I'm open to it some other time. But for right now, like I've been talking about in these last few episodes, I've really been talking about this whole sex worker thing, and it's what's working for me right now, and I'm happy to do it. In another podcast I heard after that Dating Women podcast, after I even wrote this, was Craig Perez Mindful Habits podcast, where he talks about porn addiction, and I've mentioned him before on this particular podcast, and he talks about, like it's totally illegal to go ahead and pay a prostitute for sex. And I have a fear of that. Like, what if I went to go do this and then I ended up getting arrested or something? That would just totally suck. You know what I mean? But that's neither here or there. Like I said, these are all things I'm pondering. And that's going to be the end of this episode for sure. If you find any value in this episode, or if this related to you, if this talk to you, please, I want to hear what you have to say. Comment on the blog at improveandhavefun.com. Comment, send me a comment through social media or through the voicemail. I'll leave all that information in the show notes for this episode or on this video on YouTube. And yeah, talk to me. Let me know what you think. If you appreciate this information, if you like my take, please support the podcast by doing any or all your shopping through the eBay and Amazon links in the show notes. You could do any or all your shopping through those links at no additional cost to you. It'll just be a little kickback to the podcast. Rate, review, subscribe on all your favorite platforms or you're consuming this information. Hit that little notification bell if you're on YouTube and you want to know whenever I'm going to put out a new video. And thank you so much for listening. The next episode, I'm going to be talking about 3 ways I got out of my comfort zone in 2017. And that's going to be another little itty-bitty bite-sized episode. But stay tuned. I'm going to have a lot more videos coming out very soon. Party videos, like I mentioned before. I'm going to be having all kinds of videos. Just check it out. Subscribe to the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And I will talk to you sooner than later.